All right, so we need to define the bubble here. OT is everything that your IT department or contractor or your owner's IT group doesn't manage, doesn't touch, and more than likely shouldn't touch. This is your OT firewalls. This is what's protecting your DCS, all those switches, all those HMIs, the DOS, anything that's it for hardware, everything there. That is what makes you able to hit the start button and have the gas turbine start. It also includes
your control system platform, T3000, Ovation, NetNation, Rockwell Plant Packs. Maybe you've got wireless vibration sensors, gateways, all of these devices, everything that you, everything in the plant.
So that's the easiest way to define it from a 30,000-foot view. Everything that the IT department doesn't touch, or like I said, shouldn't. So common vulnerabilities and exposures, these are the CVE scores. And the reason why NAES has started this department and really invested inside of this is because they're seeing a trend. Everyone is seeing a trend. Everyone is finding out that either they have high security or they're lucky. There is no in between. So we started taking a look at this in 2020. This is not very long ago, just 6 years ago. And there was about 100, 180, 200, somewhere around there. High CVE scores of 10. That means that you need to drop everything and take care of it. There was only about roughly 200. And this is related to firewalls, which is the front door of your system. And over the years, it's been increasing. Past few years, it has increased exponentially, and it's not going to stop. It's going to keep going. Well, what really happened? I'm sorry, that's actually the next one. So this, if you want, you can take a look at it. These are just common vulnerabilities for a critical system, i.e. the Cisco firewall. So if you have Cisco firewalls and say you haven't done anything to them since 2020, both of those are likely applicable. And that basically means everyone that has any knowledge, if they are accessible to i.e. internet, they can get in and they can do whatever they want. And they can change whatever they want. And they can, if they find a path, they can shut down your turbine. So these are on the slides. You can take a look at them. You can go to the website. You can look up anything you want. It is public forum. There is nothing that's going to stop you from being able to research, and it will help you to identify, do you even have the equipment? If you have the equipment, are you at risk?
Good.
So now what happens? AI, artificial intelligence, happened. Vendors are using it to take a snapshot, a static snapshot, and say, okay, what's open inside of this code? Oh, the other side is the bad actors are doing the same thing. The criminals, the countries that are actually attempting to try to hack into any industry, your home network, they are also utilizing these large language models such as Gemini, Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, et cetera. And they are saying, hey, if you were trying to hack someone, how might you go about it? Well, I'd like you, and this is going to be a little bit interactive. So if you're ready, if you believe you are ready for CIP 3.9, this is the vendor remote access piece of it, please raise your hand if you think you are absolutely ready for 4.1 enforcement date for CIP 3.9. I got one hand. So CIP 3.9, and I'm going to get into it later, just FYI, is enforcement date less than a month away. It's April 1st. Someone came up with the perfect date for that. And we now have a new remote access requirement that if you don't have something already in place, or you don't already have talked to the ES, the NERC department on the engineered energy services side, or you haven't talked to us, you may want to give us a call. So I'm not going to go to the next one, but just a quick piece, and I was going to ask you, but if you're already air-gapped, if you don't know what your firewall version is, that's your front door. That's how you stop everything. And how they patch all these CVEs is the firmware version. It's the same thing as when you get those notifications from NAES IT that says, you need to restart your computer because we just updated a whole bunch of things on it. Or your customer's computer if you don't have a leased laptop. That is patching vulnerabilities. That's what that process is. If you haven't touched that firewall since you commissioned and it's been sitting there for 10, 15 years, you may have a few vulnerabilities that you're just depending on luck to mitigate. So the power demand has done a couple different things. And one of the main things that it's done is it has taken facilities that have been scheduled for decom and said, you now have 5 to 10 more years of life. And your control system may or may not be ready for it. Your rotating equipment, or if you have a boiler, your tubes may not be ready for it, but your control system, it probably needs some help and some attention. So hardware is the exact same thing, and I'm talking about computer hardware, is the exact same thing as rotating the equipment. You need to maintain it. If you don't maintain it, it may find itself no longer wanting to work, and it usually happens on the perfect time. So how can we help? So these are the three things we're going to be talking about. These are the three things that are the first line of defense in this. So the silver bullet, like I like to say, is these control health assessments. This is where you bring someone in with the competency, not just, oh, I know about computers, but I have worked inside of the power plant industry. I have done these work. I know how these control platforms want to work, and I can tell you what your actual health is of your OT network. That's what we're here to do. The CIP alignment, so just like I said, CIP 3.9 is coming up. It's not the only one coming. There are many low-impact changes that are coming right behind it. That's the only one that has an enforcement date, and that enforcement date is next month. And support contracts. These support contracts have something in place so that you have an instant source at a call away support product. So the control health assessments, and I'm going to start being a little bit quieter so that Mac can talk here. So the control health assessments are here, and we want to make sure that we do exactly that. It's your definitive, your targeted, your site-specific. Here are your risks, and here is what your recommended actions and what you need to address or what you need to budget for to address those risks so that you have a plan in place. It's the exact same thing that the OEM would come in to do for you for your prime mover, your VERSIG, sometimes your control platform, but a lot of times what you'll find is they have very narrow vision. They will only look at the exact equipment that has their meatball on it. They only want to see what they installed. They don't want to look at everything. And when they don't look at everything, that's a gap. And now I'm going to actually...
Yeah, so just piggybacking on what Justin said there. Siemens comes in, they look at their T3000 system. Do they really look at all your modbus connections? They look at your third-party devices that are communicating with T3000. They just stop there. We're going to come in, we're going to start looking at all those devices, errors coming across. Are you pulling too fast? What kind of errors are you seeing? We have devices that are dead in the network. What kind of alarms are you seeing? What kind of network switches? What are your computers look like? Do you have all your power supplies on? Are we seeing any faults on drives? Kind of do a comprehensive look at the entire system and give you an idea as to where you might want to focus a little bit of time and money to bring it back up to snuff.
All right, so I have been talking about CIP 3, mostly because we're less than 30 days away from it. Vendor remote access, that is any remote access into your control network. And CIP 2, it has a piece inside of here, and the reason for that is because CIP 3 defines your responsibility to authorize access into the devices that are part of your control platform. And I'm sure anyone who's done commissioning, because I've done a few, when you're doing your CIP2 for a low impact, it's a bunch of questions, and the questions revolve around, are you generating more, equal to or greater than 1,500 megawatts in a single interconnect? Been tapped by the ISO because you have a lot of generators, and the ISO says, hey, now you're responsible for grid reliability, you're going to be medium impact. Any of those situations are usually no, and you wind up with a low impact rating, and that's about it. And then you start bolting on computers such as that nice, wonderful, dusty server sitting there that might be inside of a corner, that might actually be your weakest link. That might be the system that will be what takes you down. And identifying that and finding that mobile. For a medium impact, if anyone here is a medium impact, you know exactly what we have to go through. You have to list every single asset. CIP 3.9, the vendor remote access piece of this, is actually backdooring that requirement, because you now have to identify and know all of your assets in order to comply with CIP 3.9 vendor remote access. So now you basically have to know what your asset inventory is. And if you've been running for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you may not know all of the assets that are currently installed. And you may need to have someone who knows what they're doing coming and actually map it out. So that is the biggest problem. Like I said, these long forgotten, hey, I need to add a OPC server because I got to get pi-to-pi working, or I've got to have some sort of telemetry out, or even AGC. Everyone usually puts AGC in right after the commissioning. And if that's bidirectional, in other words, you can send data out and receive being the AGC demand signal, that might be a vulnerability that you have to account for to be able to comply with CIP 3.9. Now it's really quiet.
So this is kind of my thing. Support contracts and remote access support. So I've worked with some sites already, and historically, what's happened is that I can be there to take those phone calls, middle of the night, Saturdays, Sundays, whenever. I'll have examples of, I've had techs call me at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday. Hey, I'm heading into the plant. I got a call from the operations, and HB drum levels going crazy. Can you take a look and see what's going on? I'm on my way in. I call the operations, get some information from them, remote into site, and start troubleshooting. Okay, I've narrowed it down. Demand signal looks good. I think your demand signal looks good. Feedback is moving around all over the place. Talk to the tech. You should go to this card, look at your analog output. It's either going to be something there going on there, something with the IDP or positioner, loose wiring. I can at least narrow it down so they know exactly where to look as soon as they get on site, get the issue resolved, and back up and running before wasting time. We've had other issues with main steam stop valves going closed. Get a phone call, guys, on the way to the site. One of our stop valves is closed. Can you start looking at what's going on? I'm on the way in. We're running derated. Everything's stable, but we're not sure what's going on. Remote in, find out. Ended up being an issue with the move servo. We adjusted some stuff on the bias and got the valve open out. But we're able to do this working together remotely and on tech on site. We have other issues with, we can't get the unit on turning gear. Can you remote in and give us a hand? Something stuck with the sequencer. Talk with operations, work back and forth. We get the issue resolved. The guys are back up and bonding out. We can be there. Go to these sites, work with the guys. So it's nice to go there and then be available for remote support. Gives us a better working relationship. We can build up a little bit of trust.
So the biggest thing that we want to make sure that we stress is what's bolded right there. And your control system usually waits until Christmas morning or Thanksgiving night meal to create all these problems. Usually gives you some sort of indication that says, I want to no longer work for you about 10 seconds before it decides it no longer wants to work. So getting support for these kind of things sometimes takes time, but if you already have someone in your back pocket, that time can literally be seconds. You can give us a call. We can already have the contract in place and be able to give you that troubleshooting expertise. Sometimes you'll call the OEM. I have. Sometimes you get what you need. Sometimes you get I will be with you tomorrow, or I will send a technician to site as soon as possible, and it ends up being a week away. Forced outage rate is never something that we ever want to deal with. I'm assuming that everyone wants to stay as close to 100% available as possible. And control systems, especially the health of those control systems, is how you basically remove any of that risk.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott.